Soviets on.
Or delay the Soviets at the inner German border for as long as possible. This is why Chieftain ends up looking like it does. A massive gun, massively thick armor, and the engine is less of a priority. It's designed to sit back in a defensive position, hit the Russians at long range, and fall back. Keep fighting, take hits, well, until the Royal Armoured Corps no longer exists. Within that formation, you have to have reconnaissance assets. For the British, in the late 1980s, that was the CVRT family. Unfortunately, it was all a bit macabre there as well. If your recce screen came into contact with the enemy formation, you were probably no longer in contact with your recce screen. Aluminium armour is not holding out against the might of 3rd Guards Tank Army. But what they are there to do is identify the main axis of advance of the onrushing Soviet forces, giving battle group, brigade, division, and corps commanders time to react. That information and the speed that information can get back to them is vital. Right, where are we positioning our defensive line? Where are we counter-attacking from? If that's even possible. Where are our infantry digging in? Do we need to move them? All of this is going through. Where's our artillery going? Do we have close air support from either the Army Air Corps or the Royal Air Force? All of this is happening at the same time. You can see why fog of battle happens. For the British, this does start to change. This isn't a monolithic period for all sides. We get set in our ways and continue to do the same thing over and over again. It was a bit in the 70s. 60s and 70s, a standard army exercise for the British would involve a simulated Soviet counteroffensive into British lines. You'd hold them back, you'd take the losses. The enemy was usually played by the Germans, in fact, using their Leopards and eventually their Marders. The British forces would hold them as long as possible until their ammunition, fuel and equipment stocks were depleted, and then a simulated nuclear warhead would go off, which would signal End X. Problem, it's pretty morbid, really, not great for morale. So by the early 80s, this is starting to change. A chap called General Bagnall comes in. Initially as division, then corps, then army group commander. And he instills a new level of get up and go with the armed forces, with the British Army of the Rhine. We're not just going to sit there and take it. We're going to fall back. We're going to meet the Soviets at the inner German border. We're going to take the hit of that initial thrust, fall back. That is going to be a whole division taking that hit. We have 3 armoured divisions and 1 infantry division to play with. That is a large formation. It's not as large as the Soviets, but it is a large formation. That 1st division is going to take that hit. It's going to then fall back through the other 2 divisions. This may seem simple. It is not. That is an incredibly complex manoeuvre to pull off. Those 2 divisions are then going to draw the Soviets in. We're going to let them have ground. We're going to draw them in as long as possible, extend their supply lines, extend their confusion. Hit them all the way, though. Not going to let them have it all their own way. Artillery's going to be coming in. Air power's going to be coming in. We're going to be attriting them until that 1st division reforms. They will then form that counter-attack, hopefully smashing into the Soviet lines with as much force as they can muster. If that worked, that would have been highly successful. It is an optimistic plan, but when you've got mobility on your side, it is possible. See the Scorpion nipping around here? It would be a miracle if any of those survived that initial engagement, but they are still going to be knocking around in a few numbers, especially with the formations that are further back. The mobility for the British really starts to change by the mid-1980s. I love Chieftain. I'm sure we all love Chieftain. However, its engine does let it down. Its mobility is not up there with the latest bits of kit coming into the battlefield in the 70s and the early 80s. 432, the venerable 432. The APC, the battle taxi, is getting replaced in frontline units by this, the Warrior infantry fighting vehicle. It's not just a battle taxi, it is there to fight alongside the infantry. You mix that with Britain's new main battle tank, the Challenger 1, with its new engine and new armour, you have a new, entirely revitalised formation that can, and was planning to, take the fight to the Soviets. What the Warrior allowed to do was, it didn't just directly support the infantry. The knock-on effect of that was that it allowed the armour to be freed up, the heavy armour, to go off and do its own thing. It was not tied to the 432s of the somewhat defenceless infantry. It is an absolute step change in capability. Our colleague Stuart is going to in the next display, talk in a lot more detail about Warrior, so I certainly won't steal his thunder too much in that one. So what was the plan for the Soviets?
The Soviet plan was relatively simple. The Soviet plan was, as I said, to smash across the inner German border and effectively keep going. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Soviet vehicles when they start to move off, so you can get a better look at them. But for the moment, we have Warrior, the infantry fighting vehicle, which is just heading off. And then we have Chieftain, which is the classic British heavy hitter, a real old slugger of a main battle tank. Adding on to what James said, the whole idea with British MBTs is sit there, hold down, you've got a big gun, you've got heavy armour, you knock out the first few enemy tanks coming in your direction, and then you bug out backwards, back to the next prepared position. When we talk about Leopard a little bit later, that is a totally different kettle of fish, but this is a very heavily armoured and very well-armed tank. The thing sticking out the front of it is the L11 120mm gun, very, very hard hitting. It can either fire APDS, it can fire Fin rounds, or favourite of the British Army, it can fire HESH, high explosive squash head. So Chieftain is moving round, and the next vehicle to move off will be a Challenger 1.
Earlier, Chris spoke about Challenger 3. This is the first generation of that armour scheme. Chobham. We still really don't know what's in it today because it is that secret. Chieftain is originally a big slab of metal. This is composite. This is why it takes the shape it does. It's angular, it's slab-sided, and it works fantastically. Our Chieftain Mark 10 is upgraded with steel brew. While that is technically a composite armour, it is metal backed with rubber. Challenger is a whole different ballgame. Its gun is exactly the same as a Chieftain's. Its fire control system is near enough the same as a Chieftain Mark 11. But that mobility really gives this tank the edge. All those reforms I spoke about in the mid-80s, this is what allows the Army, the Royal Armoured Corps in particular, to go out into Desert Storm, what we call Operation Granby in 1991, with a full armoured division, and perform exceptionally well in offensive manoeuvre warfare. It was an army prepared to fight on the northern plains of Germany. It ended up doing, well, basically the opposite of that in 1991, but it achieved it. Because that officer corps, that leadership corps, those senior non-commissioned officers, they grew up in the army of the early 80s.
James was just mentioning the performance of Charlie 1 in Op Granby in the First Gulf War. having spoken to General Sir Patrick Cordingley about this, he was the guy who had a big hand in the origination of the vehicle. But up to the point where Challenger departed for the Gulf, their maintenance record was abysmal. They were short of spares. What happened was an awful lot of cannibalization to get the vehicles going, desertization, and then finally following that, they did perform extremely well. They moved something like 350 kilometers in 4 days and did a very good job. Now, looking at the Warsaw Pact vehicles, here you have the BRDM2, which is an amphibious scout car. Now, amphibious, that's a word that's going to occur repeatedly. BRDM2, that's an amphibious scout car. See how that and the vehicle behind it, the OT-90, they're both boat-shaped. They are both designed to cross bodies of water on the surface. The BRDM2, it's a scout car. They're used as command variants, anti-tank guided missile variants. This one, quite a jazzy camouflage scheme there, is actually a nuclear, biological and chemical warfare survey vehicle. But the whole thing about Warsaw Pact reconnaissance is it was aggressive. They were going to go forward, probe the enemy, look for weaknesses and suss out the routes by which the main divisions could follow. Now, behind the BRDM2 is an OT-90. Now, those of you who know a bit about tanks will be thinking, well, that's not what that's called at all, that's a BMP. It's actually a Czechoslovak version of the Soviet-designed BMP armoured personnel carrier. It's got a slightly different turret. It was actually altered in the 1990s, and originally it started off with a 73mm Grom low velocity gun in the turret. That's been replaced with a 14.5mm machine gun, which is actually round for round a far more effective weapon. But the whole thing about it, it's an infantry fighting vehicle, so it can take part in combat. But the main thing about it, in the back there are 8 what we call dismounts, infantrymen. As it goes past, you'll see there are rifle ports in the side. Never really quite understood what they're all about, but the whole thing is that infantry and tanks work together. Now, classic T-tank, T-72, comes out, as the name suggests, in the early 1970s. To start off with, it's a budget replacement for the T-64, which is too expensive and difficult to build. But the T-72 is an absolute classic of its type. When you look at it, you think T-tank. It's low to the ground. It has got that wok-shaped turret. They've deliberately made the thing lower, and in order to do that, they get rid of the only crew member who needs to stand up to do his job. That's the loader. So underneath that turret, there is an auto loader of the rounds are in it. It's auto loaded by the breech, and there's a carousel underneath. The gunner presses a button and it puts the right round of the breech. It's actually very efficient indeed. The gun is 125mm, very powerful, but the whole tank itself is lighter and faster than something like Chieftain. The Soviets, the Warsaw Pact, wanted vehicles that would cover ground, do it quickly and get the job done. We have a friend of ours, Dag Patchett. He is East German. He was actually he served on East German T-72s. We were talking about Chieftain, and he said, we couldn't imagine why you built a tank so big and so heavy. Now, as that T-72 goes past, you'll notice there is a tube attached to the side of the turret. That is not what it looks like, something like a tow missile. It actually contains the component parts for a 4-meter schnorkel, and that can be inserted. I mentioned the fact that all Warpact armour is either amphibious or submersible. It's very difficult to make a main battle tank float, it's too heavy. So the T-72, you put that schnorkel up and it crosses the river like that. That way they get around the fact that us, our side, NATO, we'd blow up all the bridges to stop them. Now, moving off. one of my absolute favourites. This is a Canadian Leopard 1 tank. Now, Leopard 1 is the first tank built by Krauss-Maffei for the post-war West German Bundeswehr. And it is superb. That's a Canadian one. The other one that I'm just by me, just up on the bund, is actually Australian. The third, Leopard 2, is Dutch, because it's not only a superb tank, it's a superb export success. Everybody wanted to buy Leopard. It's got a 105mm gun, British design gun, but it's built around speed rather than heavy armour. Leopard 1 is about 15 tons lighter and roughly the same number of miles an hour faster than a Chieftain. The thought here was that tank guns were so effective, didn't matter how much armour you hit it with, it would not do any good. So the idea with Leopard, speed, mobility, speed as armour if you like. That was the idea, and they weren't going to sit there and sit hull down, they were going to counter-attack. So as Warsaw Pact columns came across, they would manoeuvre to flank them and do the job that way. So you've got 2 Leopard 1s, and then, James, there's a Leopard 2, isn't there?
If you can hear me over those 3 engines, as I sort of said earlier in the World War II battle, it is absolutely fantastic to see multiple vehicles of the same type or a similar type in our arena. Because unless you're on a battlefield or on a training area, where else are you going to see this? This is a tank troop. This is the smallest formation that tanks are going to be moving around the battlefield. And something you may or may not have noticed, they're not subtle. They are now because they've stopped. This is why you need smaller, quieter recce vehicles. These things are then going to commit, and there's basically no going back once these things get into the battle. You can hear them coming. I'm sure you could all feel them coming as well. That is the upside of a tank in comparison to anything else. You can stay in a position, in an overwatch position, moving that turret, getting your arcs properly secured. Then you can move off if you need to, or fall back, or engage. That 120mm smoothbore main gun on the Leo 2 is an exceptional piece of kit. You saw a later variant of that earlier on the Challenger 3. The Charlie 3's one is slightly longer, but it will fire the same ammunition. And it is incredibly lethal ammunition. When Leopard came into service, it gave the British Army of the Rhine a bit of a shock. The combination of the Marder, Germany's infantry fighting vehicle, and the new mobile Leo 2s, when coming into contact with British Centurions and 432s, well, British infantry didn't really come out on top on that one, because Chieftain has lost the firepower advantage, and the infantry are totally outgunned, which is why the Charlie 1 Warrior combo is so important for the history of the British Army. Leo 2 is not only an export success, as Chris said, it's not only in service today like Leo 1, it is in production today. Leo 2A7 is being fielded, Leo 2A8 is in production, and the order books are full. If anybody tells you that tanks are obsolete, just look at who is buying tanks in how much numbers. It is staggering. If we wanted to buy a Leo 2 for our daily driver, we'd be waiting about 5 years for the first one.
There we are, ladies and gents. That's what's called a neutral turn. If you do that on a tarmac road, the council are going to be pretty hacked off because you've just handed them a big pile of tarmac and the curbstones from both sides. It is something we do slightly frown upon. But when you look at those 3 Leopards, you are seeing a considerable amount of tank development from the early Leopard 1, the Canadian, which has been improved in some ways. It's got secondary armour, through to the Australian, the last in the queue, That has had quite a bit more development. It's been up-armoured, it's got better fire control system, still the same L7 gun, but then you have got Leopard 2, and that is still very much a current main battle tank. It is in service, that particular example, with the Royal Netherlands Army, and we are very, very grateful to them for bringing it here today. So, as the Leopards make their way off, don't go anywhere. You have got the British Army display to come, but we hope you have enjoyed this look at post-war NATO Cold War armour.
And did we say the Leopard 2 had great mobility?
That's the Royal Netherlands Army just showing what it can really do. That's impressive. Victory lap for Leopard 2. Bloody marvellous.
Thank you, everybody, and we are going to hand back to Steve Bully.
Thank you so much, James and Chris, and wow.
And welcome back to Tankfest Online 2026. Unfortunately, we did have some unavoidable, unforeseeable and very unfortunate technical issues. It should be back. It doesn't affect the drops, and I hope the YouTube stream is back up and running and all smooth.
The machine crash.
Yeah, that's, if it happens, it happens.
It's hot. It's like 1,000 degrees out here this week.
Yeah. So I did want to announce that we do have a brand new giveaway, and it will be coming from one of our community managers called Dwight. Many of you will be familiar with Chris. But before then, I believe you have a little bit of news to share about the next segment.
I do? Well, I'm very excited to say that the model we're about to see is based on our very own King Tiger V2 with that unique pre-production turret.
Yeah, sorry, it's very windy. Okay, if we can have a quick look at that video now. Hopefully it's going to be very quick.
Hey there, tankers. The museum is currently restoring this King Tiger V2 behind me, but you, if you're lucky enough, were able to win this little one if you follow the Gleam link available in the chat. So good luck, and see you around.
Looks so good, that model. You got to enter right now.
We'll look out for Nick on the entry list.
I'd love one myself. Now, both at the Tank Museum and in World of Tanks, it's always those weird and wonderful vehicles that get the most attention. Now, our next video features James Donaldson, who has been doing some of the commentary here this afternoon, asking what it is that makes a tank design weird.
What makes a tank weird? We know what makes a tank bad, we know what makes a tank good, and maybe even what makes a tank ugly. But what makes a tank weird? When I was first posed this question, I thought it would be an easy answer, but the more you look into it, the more difficult it becomes to pin down. But I'm going to give it a go anyway. First things first, being weird does not mean being bad. A weird tank doesn't have to be bad, but a bad tank can absolutely be weird. There are plenty of weird tanks that are terrible, like the Valiant. And there are plenty of terrible tanks that aren't necessarily that weird at all, like the Covenanter. And there are tanks that are weird and good, like the S-Tank. And there's also tanks that are weird for the sake of being weird. But what I didn't want to do with this video was just list a bunch of weird tanks we have in the collection. Instead, I conducted a highly scientific study. I sent a questionnaire out to all staff members at the Tank Museum asking what their weirdest tank is and why. The main result of this showed that the Tank Museum staff know far too much about tanks to come to any sort of consensus, but it did show that a few patterns were emerging. Turretless tanks, not tank destroyers, actual turretless tanks. These immediately raise eyebrows. Multi-turreted tanks, a whole category of what were they thinking. Normal tanks with weird bits stuck on. These aren't necessarily weird tanks, but they've had weirdness added to them. experimental designs. This is where true weirdness thrives. When designers are allowed to go wild, they really do. And the French, a category of their own. French tanks are often weird not because they need to be, but because they simply are. Take the AMX-13, for example. It may look like just a light tank, but it was one of the main tanks of the French army. They could have built it like a normal light tank, but no, they decided to put the engine at the front and the auto-loading oscillating turret at the rear. Well, because they could. But if we had to pick one tank that would truly answer the question, what makes a tank weird, it would have to be the MBT-70. Now, I would like to make an honourable mention to this, the EBR. Yes, I know it's not a tank, but it is really weird. Look, so we've got oscillating, auto-loading turret in the middle. You've got two road wheels in the centre that drop down that are only made of steel for a bit of extra traction. You've got a driver at the front and at the back, and they're really small compartments anyway, and the most confusing hatch system my colleagues have ever come across. The MBT-70 has all the hallmarks of weirdness and then some. The gun, 152mm, and not really a gun, it's a gun launcher, primarily for firing the Shillelagh ATGW. But by this point, the US Army had already worked out it was just kind of bad. The turret, it may look normal, but it has a sub-turret. And it's not even for the commander like the Conqueror, it's for the driver. The idea was to make the hull as small as possible. But that didn't really work because the engine still had to go somewhere. The suspension is actively controlled, so while in theory a good idea, it was very complicated and does just make the thing look really goofy. Plus, the whole project was a US-German collaboration for a new generation of main battle tanks. But by this point, everyone had kind of worked out that conventional tanks work best. And this wasn't a single oddity of an experiment. They ended up building 22 prototypes, and the whole project cost both nations just $3.5 billion in today's money. In the end, I do think it just comes down to vibes, and some tanks just have weird vibes.
Well, weird vibes. Richard, what tank do you think has the weirdest vibes?
Oh, dude, that's a good question. I have to say, I mean, you know, the oscillating turrets, the French, I not so long ago drove an AMX-13, and I wouldn't say it was weird, but it was just unusual, obviously, for me as a British tankie to do it. Incredibly small. I find it, you know, actually quite difficult to get into, certainly the commander's cupola, and I'm not a particularly big chap.
Yeah. And, you know, the French have got a history of very much doing their own thing. Think about the Schneider, the Char B1, the ARL-44, and the AMX-50, which also, I think, has an oscillating turret, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Now, of course, we're talking a bit about French tanks now. Now, a few weeks ago, I was incredibly fortunate. We travelled across to the Musée de Blondet, the French Tank Museum in Saumur, and I caught up with Adrian and some of the staff just to have a look at some of the refreshes that they've done on the museum. And also, of course, the big news is the Tiger I restoration. So we're very pleased to be back here at the Musée de Blondet, the French Tank Museum in Saumur. Now, I believe that since we were last here, there have been some pretty major changes to the museum. So I'm very pleased to be joined by Adrian.
Thank you for coming. Glad to welcome you. Yes, there has been a lot of work. Shall we begin?
Oh, absolutely.
This is the very beginning. This is the First World War Hall, with the very first French tank, the Schneider and the Saint-Chamond. Originally, our museum is only on a country setup. We had the German hall, the French hall, etc.
Yeah.
We changed it all in January. Our museum is now in chronological order. So this is really, really simpler.
So it was a lot of movement of vehicles and quite hard work, I'd imagine.
Yes, it was. Because now, in here, we have 170 vehicles.
Wow.
All of them, for a part, still in running condition or complete in mechanical parts. This is quite something. Here we are at the beginning of World War II. You can see really simply the bad guys in dark gray, and the good guys with colors. Those are French tanks. This is the only museum you can see them because, well, we are the French Tank Museum.
Absolutely. The camouflage, fantastic.
Yes, this is camouflage from the beginning of the war. We were very, very colorful. But then we lacked of time, so we do it simpler, only with 2 colors. We are still at the beginning of the war. This is the biggest tank, the biggest French tank, the B1 bis. Only few exemplaries nowadays still in museums. Of course, we put just at the front its enemy, the 88, the only gun which can take down the B1 bis at the time. Then, of course, after France, we will enter USSR. And USSR was, as you know it, a very, very, very bad news for German tank because the T-34 and KV-1 were just tough monsters.
Yeah,
at the time.
absolutely, of course. Of course. I think it's important to add as well that the museum at the moment is closed, which is great for us for filming.
Absolutely. The museum is closed. We are just before the entry of the visitors. So this is a museum just for yourself.
And I believe there's still quite a lot of work to do as far as the behind the scenes.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. There is only the vehicles ready to be discovered. All the elements to understand the history will be put on time this year or next year.
Oh, wow, okay. So a lot of work to be done.
Yes, a very, very big chunk of work. We are in the desert part. British tanks on your left, Italians and Germans on the right. We are so happy, so lucky to have Italian tanks. This is quite rare vehicles.
Now, would you say the majority of the collection here is, was it found in France? You haven't got stuff that's been brought across from other countries, or the majority of the collection was actually here?
This is a long story. So, long story short, most of them for the Second World War were, well, just took in France. Because we were one of the major battlefields of World War II. And we French recover a lot of tanks just for studies. We wanted to rebuild our industrial capacities to build tanks, so we should get Germans, Americans, British tanks to study what was a good tank, what was a good ideas to get them and build better tanks. Well, of course, we still have our Tiger II. For now, the only one still in running condition.
Which I'm sure many people will remember, of course, from Tankfest last year.
Absolutely. And we are really, really lucky because we do know for sure, at last, majority of its history. It was deployed in Normandy in 1944, but its own crew had to blow it up because, of course, this is not the enemy that can destroy a big vehicle like that. It's just lack of fuel, lack of mechanical parts, and breakdowns. I said we are lucky also because we have friends out there. This is a gift. This is a Sherman Firefly.
Wow, fantastic.
From our friends in Belgium. Baston Barracks sent it to us. Here we are in 1944. German's vehicle on your right, British one on the left, and maybe this peculiar center was on the beaches on D-Day. This is possible. Churchill, of course.
One of my favourites.
Yes. We do not know for now its own history because sadly we got those vehicles, but paper doesn't do the same thing. We only had at the time the idea to get a vehicle, not its peculiar history. This is a really interesting part because everybody talk about big German tanks, but Allies were building also big vehicles. But those things are the biggest tanks of World War II. Jagdpanther, of course, Panther, and the Tiger II. This very Panther is unique. It was took to the Germans by the 2nd French Armored Division, which is here in representation with this map of France and the cross. There are some Second World War vehicles, but this peculiar hall is not about Second World War, but about colonial wars.
Okay.
The main idea is to show all the periods when tanks and armored vehicles, obviously, were used. And to understand those kind of vehicles, this will be a special area to see what is an armor. As you can see, this is a good example to talk about that. What is power, but on the point of view of firepower. So this is the gun from AMX-30B. And then we enter Cold War. Authentic piece of Berlin Wall, and then here, Soviet vehicle. On your right, on your left, Allied. Yes, of course, you saw that.
My favourite, the Chieftain.
Yes, of course.
Makes me feel old to think that I served on that. But
No, no, don't say that. You were asking where those tanks come from.
yeah, yeah.
For a part, now, those vehicles weren't on a battlefield in France, of course.
Of course.
But we have here some vehicle took by French forces around the world.
Okay.
Because with United Nations giving us areas to maintain peace, we had some fight to do. And we took some vehicle from our enemies. And those vehicles are put in display here at the museum. But well, all the vehicles weren't took with United Nations. This very vehicle here was took on Egyptian at Suez in 1956. And most of the vehicles from the Cold War era are gifts, like those two vehicles from Sweden. And we even have a Swiss tank. This is a neutral corner. Of course, this is the Vietnam War corner with American tank M41 and PT-76, two enemies at the time.
Have you got a particular favourite in the whole collection, or?
In the whole collection, yes. I must admit, I am a big fan of the S tank.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think this is really, really interesting. Why do a tank without a turret? Actually, this is not a tank without a turret. It is a turret with tracks.
Exactly, yeah.
This is fascinating.
And you know, so specifically designed for this, you know, just hiding and waiting,
Yes,
ambushing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Here we are in the Gulf War. Those two very vehicles were took under Saddam troops in 1991. There's the IMX-10 RC, IMX-30. Those two tanks were on the French side. Americans still had at the time, the Marines had still M60.
And a fantastic vehicle there, I see.
Of course, a Challenger. This is another part of the story. This is a whole to conclude the story. We begin here at the Gulf War, 1991, and we finish this very last war with the Leclerc. But in between, you have Yugoslavia. This is a Yugoslavian vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
You have, I said it, NATO and United Nations operations in white with UN. This vehicle was in Lebanon in 2006. Last but not least, the Leclerc, of course, and some other armor from France, IMX-30 B2 Brennus, just before the Leclerc took over. A Leopard 2 prototype, quite unusual, and a Merkava 1, a gift from Israel.
Brilliant. Adrian, thank you so much for this quick whistle-stop tour around here. All I can say is obviously anybody that's in the area, got to pop in and got to see you. And obviously the work doesn't end there. Restorations and your fantastic workshop staff. And we are going to have a look later at the very exciting projects that you're working on at the moment.
Absolutely, Tiger One. One of our greatest pride here in Saumur is our mechanical workshop. 4 mechanics and volunteers are able to make running 100 historical vehicles, from the first French tank, 1917, to nowadays tanks. There is 2 French tanks, 30 years apart, Renault R35 and IMX 30 B2. The little one on my left is a vehicle which have fought in the 40s at the beginning of the Second World War. This is a quite colorful vehicle, but it is the colors used at the beginning of the R35 production. This is normal, but quickly, after some years, there was only 2 colors used, green and brown. On my right, 30 years later, IMX-30B, which entered production in the 60s. And this version is an IMX-30B2. Production at the beginning of the 80s. This is a very much potent material. It is an MBT, main battle tank, and this was our tank during Cold War. You can see them on historical display, running here in Saumur twice a year. One at spring, it's the International Model Competition, and the second time in July, the weekend of the 14th of July. Now, a little sneak peek.
So, Richard, come in.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the workshop to the Musée des Blindés of Saumur.
Thank you. The beating heart of any museum.
Yes, of course. We are here. We have four mechanicals, two works on the big project to the Tiger One. It's for many years we work too. We different partners, the Panzer Farm, to work with us to make that this tank work again.
And I can imagine, so how many years has this been now? Is it the second year? No, up to 3 years.
It will drive again at the end of this summer, and we mean that it's work with the 4 mechanics. We volunteers 3 years to make this project to end it.
Fantastic. And what would you say the work so far? What's been the hardest thing, do you think? The most difficult part of the whole project?
Parts, we have all the parts we have put out to check everything that will be completed. We in the Second World War II was.
And I've always thought, I mean, when you talk about parts and everything, I mean, the technology, everybody says the technology for the Tiger was quite complicated.
The gearbox is going complicated, the engine is complicated, all is complicated, but it's a very great experience to work to this with the mechanicals, with the volunteers, and with the partners to give us the help.
Well, it's fantastic, and of course it will mean that your museum is it's only the second Tiger one that will be running in the world.
Yes, of course, of course, and it was a great experience to see the bus tanks drive on the perhaps next year or later on the running gear of the Tankfest.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, for us, it's fantastic. And thank you and all of your team so much for all the hard work that goes into keeping the history alive.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard.
We are incredibly lucky here in the Musée des Blindés because we do know the story of our peculiar Tiger I tank. This vehicle here is in pieces. You have the gun, the famous 88mm gun, fearsome. We have here the piece, the toughest piece of its armor, 12 centimeters. It's incredibly thick for the beginning of EV tanks, but this peculiar Tiger was engaged in Normandy in 1944. It was sent to the 102nd SS Heavy Tank Battalion in May 1944. It was deployed then in Normandy and it fought. We do not know which vehicles, which troop it killed or it was battling against, but what we do know for sure at the end of its story. This vehicle was trying to flee from the last pocket at the end of the Normandy fighting. In late August, in the night of the 18th to the 19th, he tried with 2 other Tigers to break through the British lines. It was night, black night, no headlights. The 3 vehicles in line tried to break through. The first can pass through, but the second was stopped by the British. Anti-tank fire break its tracks. And the second Tiger is stopped right there. And the third one, this one, smash into the second, stopped immediately, and the crew was forced to abandon the vehicle. The vehicle is then retrieved some time later by 3 French fighters that reused it against Germans. This is the story we want to tell. This vehicle, once an oppressive vehicle, then be a liberation tool in France, and after a tool to occupy Germany, because this peculiar tank, at first named Bretagne by the Free French, was renamed Colmar at the time he went to occupation of Germany. Thanks to one man, which was Michel Aubry, the father founder of our museum, this tiger was retrieved from a storage unit of the French army, and in the 70s it was put for the first time on display à Saumur in the Musée des Blindés.
Bonjour, je suis Franck du Musée des Blindés, donc je suis mécanicien. Donc j'ai eu la grande chance de travailler sur le Tigre qui est derrière moi. Donc ma spécialité a été un peu de tout, c'est-à-dire que j'ai fait la partie surtout avant, c'est-à-dire tout ce qui est réducteur. Donc toute la partie derrière le barbotin. Donc les grosses difficultés qu'on a eues, c'est que comme il n'a pas roulé pendant 70 ans, donc beaucoup de grippe, beaucoup de boulons cassés. Donc au remontage, on s'est rendu compte qu'il y avait beaucoup de choses qui fuyaient aussi. Donc obligé de refaire les joints. Ensuite, on a fait toute la partie masque. Donc on l'a rendu mobile, car il était grippé. Après, on a fait tout le système de graissage intérieur. Donc on a graissé toutes les parties bras. Donc les bras ont été démontés. Toute la partie bras a été contrôlée. Et chaque tuyau de graissage a été nettoyé pour pouvoir regraisser. Donc voilà, ça c'est toutes les parties que nous avons fait jusqu'à aujourd'hui. Donc là, on est sur de nouveaux éléments à refaire.
Bonjour, je suis Alexandre, chef d'atelier du Musée des Blindés. Donc là, nous nous trouvons sur le Tigre 1. Nous sommes dans la deuxième phase de restauration du char. Nous avons mis en place toute la partie boîte de vitesse et connecté la boîte de vitesse. Hier, on a mis en place le moteur. On est en train de connecter celui-ci et de vérifier qu'il n'y a plus de fuite. Et après, on rentrera dans une deuxième phase, qui est la phase d'essai du véhicule. Et une fois le véhicule validé, on pourra mettre la tourelle, mettre le canon et réaliser son camouflage final.
A massive thank you, of course, to the staff at the Musée de Blondé in Saumur, France. Absolutely incredible to catch up with them. The restoration project as well is going incredibly well. I feel absolutely honoured because when we were visiting, it was the first startup, as you saw on the video there, the very first start of the engine. So amazing. And of course, we will keep you updated on how that restoration is going. And ultimately, it looks like there could be another Tiger One.
Absolutely, and we wish them the very best of luck. You know, the Musée de Blondé is easily the second best tank museum in the entire world. And hopefully, you know, one day we'd love to see that tiger perhaps over here at a future Tankfest. But now, speaking of restorations, we're of course working on the King Tiger, V2 of course at the moment. But we've also decided to put the band back together and work on another big British beast.
The Tank Museum and Mr. Hughes are partnering once again, this time to bring a Conqueror heavy tank back to life.
I'm Mr. Hughes, and behind me here is a giant piece of metal, which is in fact a Conqueror tank. And we're going to try and restore it with the Tank Museum. You might remember us from a few years ago. We had a small part in helping them restore one of the biggest tanks ever made, the FE 4005. And brought it back to life and displayed it at Tankfest. Well, we plan to do a very similar thing with this. Now, for those that don't know, there aren't actually any running Conqueror gun tanks left in the world. So our plan will be to bring this fully back to life. Now, we're not going to shoot it, but it will be fully drivable as a working display to be seen at Tankfest.
The vehicle chosen for the project, Conqueror 40BA81, has recently returned to the Tank Museum from IWM Duxford, where it's been on loan since the 1990s. Having been built near Glasgow, it entered service in March 1955 and was sent to serve with the British Army of the Rhine as a troop trial vehicle. It's thought it may have been the second production vehicle off the line, but its service life was short. By 1966, the Conqueror was effectively obsolete, and it was sent back to the British Army storage facility at Ludgershall, where its original turret was removed. By 1975, it was being used as a tug at an MOD establishment, and 10 years later, it was donated to the Tank Museum.
This is its current state. Now, no idea what that is. That seat doesn't look like the most comfortable thing to sit on. But the dashboard and all the controls are present, the wiring's present. One thing that you might be wondering is, what is this?
This is a Windsor turret. It's a relic of the Conqueror development program. They had been designed to match the weight of the then unfinished Conqueror gun turrets, so trials of the new chassis could proceed.
This will be coming off, and we will be fitting a proper, genuine turret for it, and that's going to be very heavy.
Researchers at the Tank Museum have identified an original 120mm gun turret on an MOD range, and are in negotiations to recover it to complete the vehicle.
So there is a little bit of tin work that's going to need to be done, like on all these British tanks. Quite common. The boxes are a little bit rotten, but let's take a look inside. Oh yes, it's mint in there. What people don't probably realise is just how hot it is today, and the smell of old stale petrol coming out of there is really nice. Shall we show them a bit of a closer look inside? Now, it may look terrible, don't get me wrong, it is terrible, but it isn't that bad and we can fix it. Come inside like the boudoir. This is its current state. No one's touched it. This is how it came. There's the back of the Meteor engine. Air cleaners, everything is in place. A bit of rust going on down there. A lot of room in here. A lot of room for a party. Right, I'm going to have to come out because it's very smelly. Right, so you might be wondering, what is probably going to be the biggest challenge with this project? And of course, I've never worked on a Conqueror before. So I'm going to go with many things will be, but my main concern is actually what's underneath me here, and that is a Meteor M120. And for those that don't know, essentially is a Meteor engine out of a Centurion tank that someone has took the carburetors off, thrown them in the bin, and put a fuel injection system on, bringing what was a 600 horsepower engine all the way up to an 810 horsepower engine, which, in fairness, is quite impressive. But they weren't very reliable when they were new, so that worries me.
If you would like to help support this project, please visit our website and help us raise the £50,000 we need to finish the job. Donating is easy, and we're able to accept donations from around the world.
And I want to say huge thanks to the Tank Museum for trusting us with this project and the 4005. And we can't wait to see the end result.
The Tank Museum in Mr. Hughes. We came, we restored, we conqueror-ud.
Massive thank you, of course, there to Mr. Joe Hughes. Another exciting project, and so fantastic from him, and of course the Tank Museum for getting off the ground. And I have to say, the video, the bit that made me laugh the most was "We Conqueror." That was, I believe, your idea. So well done for that, Nick, of course, as well. Don't forget to check out Mr. Hughes' YouTube channel, of course, and we wait with bated breath to get updates about the restoration of the Conqueror.
Tankfest 2028, that's when we're expecting to have that vehicle here. So make your travel plans now, book your hotels, and get your spending money ready, because the Tank Museum is a registered charity, and it's supported by people like you, enthusiasts like you at home, and we really appreciate every penny of that support. There are many ways you can support the Tank Museum. Supporting us in our Conqueror project is just one of those ways.
Now, for a little bit brand new news from us, and Wargaming has released a new title called World of Tanks Heat. Here's a short video where our co-host spent a little bit of time there, touring, playing, enjoying.
We're now in the Vehicle Conservation Centre where I've bumped into Luke. It's the coolest place in the Tank Museum, and I'm not just talking about the temperature. Luke, tell us, what's going on in here today?
Well, nice to meet you all. I am Luke. I am head of community for World of Tanks Heat, which is our brand new game, newest entry into the World of Tanks franchise. And it's actually marked, well, for you guys, 2 days extra, but it's marked exactly 1 month today since we launched the game.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about this game. It's part of the World of Tanks family, but it's slightly different to the World of Tanks game.
Yes, well, World of Tanks is quite a historical game, right? It's very focused on historical accuracy. We are living in an alternate history in World of Tanks Heat. So we follow like a 70-30 principle. 70% reality, basing our tanks on real prototypes and real tanks, and then we add 30% of extra heat magic on top.
And the vehicle's a little bit more modern than they do in the World of Tanks.
Absolutely. We're settled in kind of what would be the Cold War era, right? But as opposed to traditional World of Tanks, we have hero shooter elements in our game. So for us, the agents that control the tanks are a big focus. You know, they come with ultimate abilities, the tanks have abilities, and it makes for a very aggressive and dynamic gameplay.
How's it different from World of Tanks, apart from the vehicles themselves?
Well, we lean a little bit more into some of the traditional kind of shooter game modes, for example. Right, we have things like Conquest and Kill Confirm. We have respawns. We have, like I said, we have the hero abilities and the tanks have abilities. So it's very fast-paced and dynamic, and it's a lot less punishing than World of Tanks, where, you know, you make a little mistake, you're back in the garage.
And that's something I can tell you a lot about, it has to be said.
Yeah, same.
So I can see it's very busy, it's clearly being well received. And what formats is it available on right now?
So we're actually launched fully cross-platform, both on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, as well as Steam, and of course our Wargaming Game Center on PC. And it's fully cross-platform and cross-progression, so you can play on one device, keep playing on the other device, play with your friends wherever they are. So that's really been great to see, and people have been receiving it very well.
Well, I haven't tried it yet myself, but I'm looking forward to doing it. Just one more thing, are there any vehicles in the game which are based on vehicles that you can see in the museum?
Yeah, we've got quite a few. I think the coolest example is because we are launching our Season 1 next week, which is going to be coming with 2 new tanks, and both of them are variants of the Leopard 2, which I've been looking at in the vehicle park this morning, which are amazing. But there's quite a few examples that are around the museum.
Fantastic. Well, Luke, thank you very much for joining us. If we want to play Heat right now, what do we need to do?
Well, just head to our website. It's whatheat.com, so WOTheat.com, and you can play for free on whatever platform you want.
Luke, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
And welcome back. Now, I know, Nick, you have been spending every spare second this weekend playing the Tanks Heat. I hope you've been making some time for PC still.
Do you know what? I haven't had chance to try it yet. And as for my skills in World of Tanks, well, you can probably imagine it's resulted in many smashed keyboards. That said, I know it's something that my son Edison and his mate Kit, who are here today enjoying their very first Tankfest, will enjoy. So I hope you've had a great day, lads.
And I think I'm going to have to take a moment then too. I did promise my girls at home. Can I give a shout out, please?
Why the heck not?
Yeah, my twins, Lauren and Amber. Hi, girls.
Anyone you want to say?
I just promised all these years we've been doing it. And
just
David.
Marketa. Hello, Marketa and Marketa's mum. And I hope you're enjoying the show.
So what's your highlights of Tankfest been so far?
So far, all I think about is the heat. It has been so swelteringly hot this Tankfest. It has been unreal. You?
Well, you know, I think you've got a good point there about the heat. We always manage to have a mini heat wave over Tankfest.
Come on, guys, Challenger 3. We've seen Challenger 3.
Oh, sorry, here we are moaning.
First time ever
There's been
in
a lot
public.
of great highlights. You're absolutely right. Challenger 3 was incredible. Meeting Johnson Bahari and seeing him open the show on Friday was a really
real
amazing
honour.
moment for me. All
Sherman
of those
Jumbo.
fantastic guests. The the Leopard 2 from the Netherlands. Fantastic. You know, the Stug 3, the Sherman Jumbo,
the Nashorn.
I know you've been very excited about that, Richard. Just dying to see it because it's been a long time coming.
It has been a long time coming, Basson.
long time at customs,
I think it's a good opportune moment, really, to thank all of the huge amount of people, of course, that take the time out to go to Tankfest to bring these vehicles. I mean, their passion is apparent when they come here. As David said, as all of you know, it's been very hot over the last few days. A lot of them are camping out as well.
They are. Yeah, and looking around, there's lots of happy people in the audience, albeit slightly sunburned. But here we are at the Tank Museum in rural England, but occasionally with the same temperature as Arizona. Always during Tankfest, anyway.
Well, I know we're waiting for the British tanks to get roaring. So before then, I think now's a good time to remind everybody about Twitch drops, which are going on right now. It is still valid and happening on Twitch, where after 60 minutes you would have had a chance of crew beaks, I don't know what a beak is, Tier 10 Badger 3D style called the Mordred, the Tier 8 premium tank, the ST66. After 120 minutes, you have the 2 Tankfest token store tokens, where you can get yourself a Richard Commander and put him in charge of all your tanks, and you will win every battle. After 180 minutes, you will have a chance of credit personal reserves, the Tier 10 IS4 Granite 3D style, or the Tier 9 French premium tank, the Shah MLE. Now, for those that haven't tuned in since last year, we had some big changes in World of Tanks PC. We launched 2.0, where we introduced a lot of Tier 11 tanks, which was pretty big. We had a lot of in-game updates, mechanics, matchmaking changes, and everything else. So I'm hoping, Nick, you will be able to check all of those out soon.
Let's see if I've improved any. Now, we are about to enjoy the last live display of Tankfest 2026, which will be the modern display from the British Army. And the vehicles we're going to see among them will be something quite interesting, the Boxer, which is one of the new British Army vehicles. And I don't know if it's something you're all that familiar with.
No, I'm afraid it's a bit new for me. But of course, it is the first time it's been here.
It is the first time we've seen it here at Tankfest in British Army service.
In British Army service, of course, yes, absolutely. So I think, judging by the crowd at the moment,
big round of applause.
Big round of applause. I think we are.
We don't see any movement from here.
Almost ready to go across, back live to the arena to catch up with the British Army.
Explain what my actual job role is. Seeing everybody here of their own volition, supporting everything that we do is probably the highlight of the year. I think it's fair to say there's quite a lot of noise about our armed forces at the minute. Not all of it is always positive. So when we get the chance to come to an event like this, where people have paid good money to come and see us, the conversation we have, the questions we have, the debates we have at the ammo stand, and the support that you could perpetually show us, it really means a lot for all of us. So once again, thank you. As been touched on, we've got the chance to have a lot of the families of the soldiers that you're going to see coming around here. So today, where I can, I'm going to drop the names of the crews and of the vehicles that we're going to see. The family members out there, I do expect that you're going to make some noise, but if you could support that, recognise the fact that they're out there doing this for you, it's going to make our day, it's going to make our day fantastic, and it's going to be a highlight to the end of our weekend.
So, tell us then, thanks so much for that, Corporal Wright. Tell us then, what's your job here up the road at what I used to call Armoured Trials Development Unit? It's now Armoured Trials Unit. I always jokingly say they're there to try and break the kit.
Absolutely. We'd call it checking for ruggedisation, squaddy-proofing it. Ideas come to us. Whilst, yes, we've dropped the armoured from our title, we are still very much the home of mounted close combat at Bovington. So whatever it may be, it could be some form of drone detection, it could be some form of new camnet, new headset, helmets, anything like that. Once the boffins have created it for us, we're going to take it, we're going to run it through the field, and we're going to check to see if it works. it's a fantastic job, okay? The Army is a big organisation, and I'm very happy and very lucky to have the chance to work down there, because we're seeing future kit before it gets to us, before it gets to our soldiers, and our input as the experts on that is truly appreciated. I'll spin a slightly nostalgic story for you. The last Christmas card I got from my grandfather before he passed away had a very good line on it. It said something along the lines of, find a job that you love and you never work a day in your life. I get to do that whilst working over here. It's not always great, but I definitely love it.
And it's a really interesting time for you guys as well at the moment, isn't it, for the Army? Because there's new kit coming in, old kit going out. You've got to work out what works together. And we're going to see some of that lovely kit as well, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. It's an exciting time. We've talked about the new stuff that we've got. We're talking about re-rolling the old stuff. How do we make it work? Threats change constantly. We all see that. And what we do at Army Trials Unit is to take ideas, make plans with them, and make them work. I think we're probably about time to see some vehicles.
Let's give them a wave and let's see if anyone was paying attention over there. We'll wave again. Go on, that's it. There you go. We'll wake them up. So it's been a hot day. So let's see, what's that first vehicle we're going to bring on? Because again, I imagine a lot of people here think, oh, it's got to be a tank or something. Hang on, what's this one? Really important though.
So this is the MAN SVR, okay? So part of the MAN SV or support vehicle range. This is the recovery variant. This is what we use to drag things out of trouble, okay? Anything up to including about the size of a Warrior. You'll see the large crane on the back there. That is a recovery crane. That's able to lift things. You're looking at about a 15-ton limit on there. At the rear, once it drives around, you'll be able to see winching mechanism, pulleys. That's able to drag stuff up to 35 or 50 tons, depending how it's done. This vehicle is crewed by the REME, Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers. Okay, most specifically, you're always going to have a recce mech on there. Today, we've got Corporal Glasgow and Lance Corporal Metcalf. Mitford, excuse me. There we go, I got his name wrong and we still cheered. On camp, recce mechs are responsible for checking our lifting equipment, ensuring it's all in date, making sure we can do things safely. When we get out of camp, these are some of the busiest guys and girls you know, because we don't get many vehicles caught in ditches on the tank park, but it happens when we're out there. So if you want a job where you're quiet for 20% of the time and busy 80% of the time, this isn't for you. If you want to be quiet 80% of the time and very busy 20% of the time, take this job. A few points on the SVR itself. It is a big vehicle. In that configuration, it can weigh up to 38 tons, and it needs to be that weight because it needs to be able to pull the vehicles. Interestingly, it can be used as a multi-purpose tool, so it's not just limited to recovery. The crane on the top, if used in conjunction with another vehicle, and I've seen this happen, it is a pretty impressive sight. Two of those put together are able to lift the turret off of a Challenger 2.
We said before, how many roughly we've got, you know, because again, scale, we're seeing one of everything here, but of course for the military, we're actually talking lots most of the time.
The MAN SV range, you've got about 6,000 vehicles, but that includes all what we generally term as army trucks. SVRs, you're looking in the hundreds. Most of them are going to be attached to regiments that you've got the Warriors, the vehicles that require that kind of recovery. As an armoured soldier, I'm probably going to see one per squadron for me, because it's not there to pull Challengers out of trouble. We're going to see a vehicle like that coming up shortly.
And again, in the background, so obviously serving Army, trialling it here, but you've seen the stands out here. We've got things like the yeomanry, the people in the background as well, because part-time soldiering as well. People, I imagine there's people here in the audience with the skills, recovery, road stuff, they'd be perfect for this, wouldn't they?
And of course, that's the thing. We often talk about the Army giving you transferable skills. REME is very definitely one of those. It's a technical trade. Being a technical trade, some of their skills are on a higher pay band, especially if you enjoy electronics. Join as a technician, you start off as a Lance Corporal, more money, and you've got that ability to then go and work elsewhere.
So, obviously it's come on, something big and noisy behind, hiding behind the mound there. Now, another one of these classic vehicles that is essential for an armoured force, wherever it's going, but sometimes we don't look at so much down here. We only like the real big battle tanks, and here we're talking about something that recovers them.
Absolutely. So we've got the craft here. Challenger Armoured Repair and Recovery Vehicle. As the name suggests, it's armoured, it's there to repair and recover Challengers. In its OES configuration, we've got the extra armour on. She's a real brute. About 68 tons, you're looking well over 70 with that. She needs to be heavy because she needs to recover the extra tanks. Again, crewed today by the Remy. We've got Corporal Wood driving today. Big shout out to her and his girlfriend who's present here. And then at the top, we've got Corporal Tucker. Hi, Ali, you're out there in the crowd, I know, somewhere. And Bob, who we mentioned yesterday. Let's give him a round of applause again for being ginger in this heat. Now that we've got the personalities out of the way, I should probably tell you what it actually does. The crane that you see on the top of there, okay, that is not a recovery crane. Unlike the SVR, that's not used for getting vehicles out of trouble. That's there primarily to take the pack, the engine, out of Challengers. It is theoretically possible to take its own pack out as well, although in practice, highly difficult. At the back there, that's where you see the drawbars. Once they've got us out of trouble with a winch that you see on the front, the drawbars are then attached to form an A-frame. That can pull a fully uploaded Challenger 2 tank out of most situations.
And this is in this phrase we sometimes use erroneously, but theatre entry standard. It's got the extra armour on the outside, bar armour at the back, and some of the electronic gadgetry that if it's going off on combat situations.
Yeah, high threat environment. As ever, vehicles like this are combat support. They're not supposed to be frontline fighting vehicles, but they go where the frontline fighting is. So it needs to have that additional armour. It brings to memory the famous incident in Iraq. We've got Staff Sergeant Lyndhurst of the Remy. Recce Mech, he received a military cross for successfully recovering Challengers. Over the course of the day, his crew recovered a stricken Challenger. This is the famous one where the Challenger got hit by so many RPGs. The numbers are inflated. Regardless of that, Staff Lyndhurst, under constant small arms, RPG and mortified, recovered it. So whilst not frontline fighting soldiers, they've definitely got the courage to get in there and help retrieve those assets.
And you have to say, if you like your vehicles, it looks perfect for its role, doesn't it? Dozer blade on the front, big and butch, perfect. It's a perfect Tonka toy. Now, another one that's pretty obvious, I imagine most of us could work this one out, it's a bridge layer.
We've got it. The bridge layer today, Titan. So Challenger 2 Titan Armoured Vehicle Launched Bridge is its full name. We just refer to it as Titan. Those with any form of insignia identification will see this is crewed by the Royal Engineers, okay? Today, driven by Sergeant Smith and commanded by Staff Sergeant Ansell. The engineers, okay? Very, very specialised in what they do, and the Titan personifies that. Whilst we've had the SVR and the Krav that carry out multiple purposes well, the Titan is there to do one thing. It's to bridge gaps for us, whether that be a river, whether that be some form of small ravine. This is highly specialised, and as such is vital to our ability to fight manoeuvre warfare.
Now, it's an obvious thing to say, but we have to remember this. You imagine all your tanks going forward, you've got an armoured force. You come to, as the military would call it, gap crossing. You come to a river, something like that. If you're all held up, it's a real problem. You absolutely need these assets if you're going to continue and advance. So for the army, they're really precious assets, aren't they?
Key. And the same goes vice versa. If we see an enemy one of these, it is instantly a high value target because we can deny that same ability for them. Most modern war fighting is based upon combined arms manoeuvre. The key element of that is manoeuvre warfare. You want every element moving together in unison. Well, if one element can't move, if you can't advance, it comes to a halt and you become an easy target.
So we're going to see the vehicle. If he finds an appropriate spot, see if he's going to actually try and drop that bridge for us. But seeing him move around there, one of the issues, of course, is now you've got new kit coming in. Of course, you've got to make sure the older kit is still going to be compatible. And we saw this morning, Challenger 3 is still going to be able to use this bridge?
Challenger 3, I believe so. Don't quote me because we haven't got these are prototypes. I can talk to Challenger 3 recovery. We've been out on Krav recovery trials. Challenger 3 can be recovered by craft, so that's a tick in the box. Similarly, SVR has been tested with Boxer. That's a current one where they're trying to work out if it is feasible.
So back to that key role of the trials unit is making sure the compatibility between the vehicles. No one wants to go on a campaign or service anywhere and find that something's not working with something else. And again, and you're doing that at the moment, not just with the vehicles, but kit, aren't you? Like new crew clothing, helmets?
New helmets, new body armour. I could bore you to death. I've been deeply involved in looking at new army boots. But talking of working together, we'll draw attention a little bit and we're going to explain what's going to be going on in the background whilst this bridge is being laid, okay? Today we're laying a number 10 bridge, 24.5 metres, quite an impressive length that we can cover with that there. Before any of this has happened, we've reconnaissanced a suitable spot. That could have been done by our own reconnaissance, so a light cavalry regiment. More than likely, we're going to have ID'd where we think we can go, and then armoured recce, okay, they have their special reconnaissance, all kinds of measuring sticks, gauges, they're going to tell if it's correct or not. Traditionally, they would have been on a CVRT platform, a Spartan perhaps, now more than likely to be one of the Ajax variants or indeed a Warrior. As we've touched on and we've gone on about, this is a high value target. We are not going to let that go to any form of crossing by itself. Before it's moved, we're going to have a troop of tanks, if we were an armoured battle group, watching this spot, looking out in depth to make sure there's no enemy over there. Move into the crossing, it's going to be protected. It could be 4 warriors, it could be 2 tanks. It depends what we've got on hand. Reinforcing the fact that this is vital. We would rather lose another armoured asset than lose one of these, because we don't have that many of them.
And again, with we always, and again, part of the history, the museum still teaches that idea of what can we learn from the past. The classic situation is always with, we never think we've got enough tanks, but we certainly never have enough armoured engineering variants, do we, sort of thing. So over time, this is something that we have to learn again. We saw the Krav, it's over there with a dozer blade. You know, if you're going in an urban setting, you're going to be needing that dozer blade for so many different reasons now. So the fact of Challenger, we can fit a dozer blade on the front. All this sort of engineering assets can be vital, or will be vital, wherever we're going to fight.
I'm very glad you mentioned the dozer blade, because I was actually part of it wasn't really a trial because we successfully did it. This was whilst we were out in Estonia. For the first time since, I believe, Chieftain, we actually fit a track width mine plough onto a Challenger 2. So normally you'd see that on the Trojan, the other T2 variant, the big angry one that clushes up. We managed to put that on a Challenger 2 and have the similar effect. Your point on urban warfighting. Most of the world is going to be living in urban environments soon. Whether we like it or not, we have to be able to fight in that environment, and the craft can do that with its blade. Spying over there with my recce eyes, we can see a recce vehicle coming to the fore. This is very much something that's not really used for the urban environment. What we've got here is Jackal 3. Okay, Jackal 3, this is the latest incarnation of the Jackal, and I believe it's the first time it's appeared with the British Army here at Tankfest. Crewed by the light cavalry regiments. What is it? It's a deep reconnaissance and fire support vehicle. Today on there, we have, up the top there, we've got Lance Corporal Watson from the Scots DG. Driving it today, we've got Lance Corporal Ryan from the Queen's Dragoon Guards. And the biggest round of applause I want is for Mr. Wayne Dennis, the Army's most important civil servant, commanding it. He has been with ATU for over 20 years. I can guarantee you that man has put more kit and equipment into the hands of our soldiers than any other. He deserves his recognition there. Anyway, what does the vehicle do? It travels at road speeds when it's on the road, 100 kilometers an hour. It can go 50, 60 cross country if you're brave enough. The key things that you're noticing with the Jackal 3 there, it's got a windscreen. It's got a windscreen and it's got the enhanced rollover protection, or ROPS as we call it, on the top, which allows it to actually have a roof. It's slightly boxier, slightly heavier than the Jackal 2, therefore the engine's been upgraded, gives it better protection as well, and it's still got that classic V-shaped hull underneath. Designed to operate at length, its last use was Op Nukem in Mali, where a troop of these were able to go out for a week at a time, being resupplied by the supply variant, which we call the Coyote, the 6-wheel variant that the troop sergeant would drive.
And I mentioned this before, but it's interesting to know we are now not always painting them in this, what we would consider a Middle Eastern sand sort of colour, isn't it? Because we've now got urban ops, so we've got urban camouflage, and of course, you mentioned we're out in Estonia, so very different camouflage schemes now coming back on vehicles.
Having enjoyed some of your videos on personal camouflage patterns, I think it's a really interesting time for armoured vehicles as well, because there is work being done. What is the new camouflage pattern going to be? We all remember Berlin camo. Is it going to be digital? Are we going to be going for some kind of disruptive camouflage pattern? It's quite exciting in that time. Yeah, that is a vehicle that is more than likely being used in a sandy condition, so we've still got that colour. But watch this space, because who knows what we're going to be doing. We do a lot on work of disruption, trying to break up the outlines of vehicles. That can be achieved with add-on camouflage. It can be achieved with simple paint.
And one thing that perhaps many people here, you can obviously see that vehicle. We're looking through our eyes. It might be that you're going to be looking through binoculars if it's, again, out there on campaign. Don't forget, a lot of systems now are looking at vehicles through thermal, so you're trying to protect against that, so you see a thermal image of the vehicle. And of course, the other thing is this word electronic signature. It's pumping out another set of signals, isn't it, that you want to detect if it's the enemy or hide if it's yours.
The biggest thing for that is radio transmission, and being part of an armoured regiment, if anybody's got any experience in tanks, you know we like to waffle nonsense over the net. So that is a real training thing. We need to really minimise that. When we're moving into position, we need to be able to do that without transmitting, because when we're transmitting, we're giving our location away.
And when you see these vehicles, by the way, it's not just out in the middle of, like as we were used to before with the earlier versions, Iraq, Afghanistan, but the idea of those, they did the exercise where they send them across Poland to the Baltic, and they are very speedy and impressive. You've got a fair old lump there with a 50 caliber that can turn up and do some damage.
Yeah. 500-600 kilometres road mileage you're able to do. The whole purpose of the wheeled vehicle that we'll touch on, it doesn't have that massive logistic chain. We are able to move it by the road, not dependent on rail systems. And here's another one of these vehicles. So what we've got here, the Foxhound, today crewed by Sergeant Duncan driving it, Sergeant Jackson driving it, and WO2 Duncan of the King's Royal Hussars. This is a light protected patrol vehicle. Okay, designed to operate at length. Unlike a protected mobility vehicle, which tend to be a little bit larger, this isn't going to go into high threat environments. This was paired with Jackals on Op Newcomb. A direct replacement for the Snatch Land Rovers. When we learnt our lesson on the Herricks that they weren't suitable. Classic giveaways, the V-shaped hull that lets the blast kind of go up either side of it. You've only got one door. You can't see it, but the inside, the driver's side, doesn't have a door. That's all to maintain rigidity. And another word that we're going to touch on soon, modular. Okay, the modular elements of it mean that you can add bits and pieces on. The wheels, for example, are all individual drive, meaning, oh, it does sound nice as well. This vehicle is capable of driving on 3 wheels. I've not seen it tested, but in theory, that's what it can do.
And that idea is also about, there's another word, sacrificial. Sometimes you'll see vehicles with that classic V shape. It doesn't matter if it loses a wheel. It doesn't matter if it loses the bins on the side, as long as that central proportion that's in the middle there is actually keeping the crew safe. And also, amazingly, they're able to repair some of these quite quickly, aren't they? Things like Mastiff and everything, bolt on another wheel station. You know?
And this is the classic thing. Again, I've talked at length with people who visit us over there. The NATO, yes, it is more of a tank thing, the survivability, mobility. NATO and our, all that allies, we always prize survivability over manoeuvrability, which is why some of our vehicles might be a little bit bigger, but when they do get hit, we want to make sure our men and women are getting out of it and we can repair it afterwards.
And that in turn gives soldiers confidence who are in those vehicles, because they know. And I always thought here, when we were helping with the Ukrainians getting stuff, and I was amazed at how the Ukrainian soldiers, when they got in British kit, they all said, oh my goodness, someone's actually thought about us, having been used to old Soviet kit before, so that idea of someone who's trying to protect you as a primary asset, not just a vehicle. And you can see there that speed of those vehicles. I'm always fascinated. They're torsion bars down the side, aren't they? So you can actually see the springing mechanism are those funny rods going down the side of the hull there. And they're being twisted every time a vehicle goes over a bump. That's how a torsion bar works. Normally they're across the hull of a tank. There they are on the outside, laterally along the side of the vehicle.
Talking about modular, future-proofing wheeled vehicles, what we've got here is Boxer. Okay, MIV, mechanised infantry vehicle. We'll get the good stuff out the way first. Crew today, we have got Lance Corporal Smith driving it, and we've got Staff Sergeant Smith of the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers commanding it. Unfortunately, a big friend of mine, Sergeant Major Latham, refused to get on here because he didn't want to be mentioned, but I've done it anyway. What is Boxer? Okay, Boxer is the future, the backbone of our heavy mechanised infantry brigades, okay, and indeed some of the armoured ones. What is Boxer not? Some people think this is given as a replacement to Warrior. It's not going to be that. It's not designed to be that. Multiple variants have already been in use. This vehicle has been in use in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Lithuania, in Australia. It is a successful vehicle. We know it's good. We're going to be getting about 600 of these. The initial tranche is going to be built in Germany. The remaining going to be brought over here to the UK, providing around 1,000 British jobs.
Now, one of the first things you see about this is scale, isn't it? It is a big-looking vehicle, but it's very mobile and very fast. And we also say in the past, you know, tracks would go places, wheels can't. Wheels have caught up in many areas, haven't they? There's still actually speed, cheaper, mobile, faster. So obviously for the military, and easier to maintain. So obviously militaries like wheeled vehicles, don't they?
I recoil at the term cheaper. You know, it's a cost-effective version of it. The logistical chain is much smaller, but you're absolutely right. The Boxer is a big vehicle, 32 to 38 tons. The variants we're going to be getting, this is actually the engineer variant. It's very hard to tell from the outside, but inside you sacrifice half of the seats that you would have a section of infantry in to be replaced, in effect, with a box that you can put deck cord, charges, all of that in there. Medical one is going to be slightly higher. And having been in the medical variant, the equipment in there is second to none. Currently going around in the old battlefield ambulances that we've got, they're very much of their time. This, along with other vehicles such as Ajax, is the cornerstone of us moving forward.
And when you look at this, so we said that word modular. For most people here, if you remember, go back, I'm a Thunderbirds generation person. So the pod on the back can be lifted off. So if you look at that vehicle from almost about, what is it, halfway down, that rear section can be lifted off and a different pod put on for a different role should you need it. And there's going to be a range of those sort of different roles we know they're going to be used for, so different pods. And they're developing it further, aren't they? It may well be that the new 155 artillery system goes basically on the back of a Boxer.
And that looks like a very exciting prospect, having read a little bit about that. The thing with modular as well, not only does it allow it to change its battlefield role, but we can keep it current and competent. We can swap it out, we can upgrade it, something that possibly British armoured fighting vehicles have been guilty of not doing in the past. It future-proofs it, and it allows it room to develop, to keep up to pace with developing threats.
So all the time we'll be talking about this is first generation, second generation, newer things coming along the lines as well. And especially now, all these, I don't even talk about digital stuff, infrastructure, all this way that new things can be plugged in. So, what else we got coming around here? So another old favourite, we've seen it already this afternoon, but still in service. There's a tendency to already say it's gone. It isn't, it's still around.
No, it's not gone. And whilst the regiments traditionally using this are moving on to Boxer, Warrior has found a new lease of life. Now, before we get technical, we've got very, very important people on this vehicle today. Clearly all important, but we've got Sergeant with a J, because he's a rifleman, Sergeant Colville gunning. We've got Colour Sergeant Giffrin commanding. And the round of applause that I want to hear today. Driving, we've got Warrant Officer 2, Mikey Dutton. This is his last thing he's been doing. He's going to be leaving the army in 3 months or so after 25 years of service. Originally starting with the PWRR, he joined the Fusiliers because he loved the Warrior that much.
I was going to say, pretty much everyone who's served in the Warrior, they do like it. They think it's a great bit of kit, don't they?
It is. Movement, relative reliability, the ability to stop on its nose. It really can stop on a sixpence. What we've started using them for now is reconnaissance. I know you may think reconnaissance is a big noisy vehicle, but we can change the way we do reconnaissance. With drones, it allows you to increase recce standoff. What would have had a crew of 3 have we got here and 7 in the back? Well, we used to use CVRTs, now we're using Warrior. You've got all that room in the back.
And even though it's getting an older weapon, that 30mm Radon cannon is still a pretty punchy piece to take with you.
When you look at what it was used for originally, you know, laying fire down as infantry were dismounting, closing in and destroying His Majesty's enemies, 30mm Radon cannon, rapid fire, high explosive going overhead, it was perfect for what it was there for. Still massively in use. What you see here is the 510, the infantry carrying version. We've still got the 511s, the 512s, the 513s, the Recce, the Engineer, and then going on to your 14s, 15s, the artillery variants. So whilst our doctrine may be changing in terms of armoured infantry, it's not with the other things, the other specialist vehicles, and they're still very much in use and very much in demand.
And behind, of course, any fleet of vehicles, there's a training remit, there's spares, there's all those things. And again, as we were saying, these staying in service for that much longer, again, you've still got to keep an eye on them, because if there's a new little bit, they had, what was it, a few years ago, new cameras put over the rear doors, things like that. Again, you're still having to have these in the stable up the road, because if they're in service, there might well be something that this is, you're going to have to look at, a new add-on, whatever's the next generation.
And I'm glad you mentioned the camera, because that is actually something that we did over the road at ATU. Came down, added it, and simple fixes like that that have gone missing so long, it's a massive difference maker. All the vehicles now are getting not 360 cameras, but with that high threat that possibly, dare I say, drones are creating, you want to be able to have full visibility 360 degrees without having to be exposed above the turret.
We mentioned it yesterday, but one of the great defensive mechanisms on its own is speed. The fact it is so fast, you're hoping basically the enemy gunners aren't going to get a chance to actually lay their guns on you before you've even got there, dropped off the infantry, and you're back for tea and biscuits. You know, it's that quick, isn't it?
As the adage goes, speed is the best armour,
yeah.
Okay? And bear in mind, when that's being used properly, it's going to be used in conjunction with this, okay? Challenger 2, as we see here, up armoured, everything we can do. This is the infamous Megatron. Our favourite tank from over the road at ATU. This is pretty much what we can do with a Challenger 2 top end, a combination of OES and TES. If you want to get into a technical debate about what the difference is, Staff Sergeant Anthony Cherrett of the KRH is your guy to do that. He told me he'd love to do that. We've got the remote weapon system. We've got the ECM suite at the top. We've got the add-on armour. This is the pinnacle. If we're going to go into a high threat environment, this is what we're doing it in. 3rd generation main battle tank. We've got composite armour, we've got the fully automated electronic fire control system, meaning irrespective of what speed we're travelling, we can use that weapon system from a fully stabilised position. A quick shout out to those on board and the ones that you can't see. Driving today, we've got Trooper Thompson from the RTR, we've got Lance Corporal Reamer from the RTR, and commanding, we have our Canadian 2IC from ATU, Major Ben Mitchell.
So in many ways, Megatron's become a bit of a star, hasn't it? Because it's always the one that comes down here, gets photographed, it's always the one with the extras on. And this is a plea because, of course, when Challenger 3 comes into service, we want you to leave Megatron here so it can become a collection piece. I'm sure you can sign that off. You've got the right pay grade, haven't you? So,
I mean, above my pay grade, but I'm all for it.
Okay. So it is that, and I keep coming back to, that's the point. You look at all those other bits of kit there, just the idea, someone's got a great idea, we add it to the vehicle, it may be very positive, but what if it interferes with something else? You can see it physically there with things like bar armour, why it needs to be mobile, why it can rock at the back as you've got all those things, but also other bits of electronics. If they're interfering with each other, we've done no one any favours.
That's why we trial it, that's why we test it, you're absolutely right. I can think of only a couple of trials where some really good piece of kit has been on it, but integration has been the drama. And unfortunately, with the older platforms, that's something that you learn to live with. Thankfully, from those lessons learned, we try and stop those issues becoming apparent on the newer vehicles.
And this idea that there's so many modern plug-in systems, that idea we've got an infrastructure now that, again, in the past the electronics were almost separate for everything. Now we can take one thing out, plug something in. Or that's the idea one hopes, isn't it?
Modularity, as we've said, buzzword, but it's all about that, future-proofing and modularity.
So one other thing's when the Challenger 2s, obviously some of those Challenger 2 hulls being used in Challenger 3s, they're being upgraded, of course. What we're looking at here as well, the hunter-killer system, and he's going to use his smoke, so be warned as we go around. He's doing that just by putting diesel on the hot exhaust, and it's a way of creating, and it also acts against thermal as well to a degree, doesn't it?
It does. So we're fortunate because at the front you'll see we do have the normal multi-barrel smoke grenade dischargers. Much more of a defensive thing. We really need to get out of trouble, let's pop it. But the ability to blast smoke by simply belting the diesel on can create confusion, and it can mask our movement. But what you've got to remember with smoke is it works both ways. We can't magically see through our own smoke, so it needs to be used liberally.
And again, it's a simple thing, but the fact you're hiding, your bridge layer, etc., if that's all going on, the fact that smoke is confusing the enemy, maybe we're there, maybe whatever. And again, as an army, we've got to get better at that all the time, isn't it? The Russians are very, very good at deception. You don't just dig one tank hide and put a Challenger in it, you do 5 and hope they waste all their ammunition on the empty ones, sort of thing that way. Now he's backing off in there. What we're going to do in just a moment for you, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to bring those vehicles back out. They're going to parade around, so you've got a chance taking a photograph. They'll stop briefly, so with any luck, you'll be able to give a wave, and if the families are here, they'll be able to see their hubbies or partners there in a bit more of a close-up for a photo moment. And before they all, then they're going to be heading off from the site, but before they all do go, I repeat what I was saying earlier. They are your army. If you're British here, they're the people that are going to defend you. We do need to own them more, and we do need to care and make sure we do the right thing by them. So please give them a round of applause so we can show our support to them and their families who have come here with them today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed to David Willey and also to Corporal Lucas Wright for talking us through these amazing armoured vehicles that are currently part of the Army fleet. They're not going to be staying around for long. They've all got to get off. I think they're on a promise of fish and chips tonight. So if you want to get any pictures, now's the time to do it while they're parked up. And once again, please give them a great big round of applause. As David said, these are our army. And really important, of course, on Armed Forces Week. As I mentioned earlier on, not that anyone ever listens to anything I say, don't dash off. The Tank Museum site's open until 6 o'clock this evening, so you've got plenty of time to go into the Tank Museum if you've not been in it, go into the Vehicle Conservation Centre if you've not been in there, or pop down to see the Tank Park or even the Babcock Activity Zone. Of course, they're proud partners of Tankfest this year, which leaves me only to say thank you very much indeed to you for coming. Don't forget your 2027 tickets at 2026 prices at tankfest.org when you get home. And from myself, a big thank you from all of the staff, all of the volunteers, the directors, the speakers today, and of course as well, big thanks to everyone who's done the audio visual. Hopefully you've enjoyed Tankfest. Make sure you fill in the feedback form and have a very safe journey home.
Another fantastic display from the British Army, of course, and no better way to round off the live arena show at Tankfest 2026. But please stay with us because we've got a few more things to show you before we wrap it up.
That's right, it's been absolutely fantastic. Plenty of noise, plenty of dust, and plenty of sunshine. Tickets are available for Tankfest 2027 right now, so please go to our website, tankmuseum.org, and have a look at your travel plans.
And travel plans.
Travel plans.
Sorry, Nick, go on.
Oh, sorry, yes, I was not done yet. So there are many ways you can support the Tank Museum. I've said before, the Tank Museum is a registered charity, and we couldn't exist if it wasn't for your support. People out there, people who are enthusiastic about the story of armoured warfare. So if you've appreciated what we've done today, and if you'd like to support us, please go to our website. There are many different ways that you can support us. We've got our King Tiger V2 appeal, we've got our brand new Conqueror appeal, and of course you can go along to our online shop and find something as a souvenir for Tankfest that you never knew you needed.
I'll always find
Now I'm done.
I have something, Richard.
Oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. So I need to read the names properly. We do have the winners of the RC Tank giveaway. So for the top two, the winner is Eat My Laptop. Love the name.
Sorry?
Eat My Laptop.
Right.
That's the name they chose. And then for the King Tiger, which unfortunately we have to send for some minor repairs before we ship it out.
Oh.
Is going to Grigor_GR. So congratulations to those two people. Thank you very much.
Were you playing with it? Is that what happened?
Yes, we tried to drive it in the arena and then that didn't go so well.
Oh, massive congratulations. Great prizes, and
I'm sorry. We had to cross your name out. Somebody might say something. It was like, wait, Richard won this?
Now, keeping on the theme of the modern British Army, FAM was extremely fortunate to be invited to the D&M Driver and Maintenance School in Bovington Camp recently, and this is what he got up to.
I can guarantee you've never seen a classroom quite as amazing as what we're about to show you. I'm down here at the D&M School, the Driving and Maintenance School on Bovington Camp. And this is where the guys learn everything all the way leading up to them driving Challenger 2. Everything from learning about different bits on the vehicle to getting in the simulator and then driving the real deal on the roads. So let's get in there and have a look at the kit that's behind me. I'm joined here by Lance Corporal Scott Eustace, who is part of the Royal Tank Regiment and is here in what has to be regarded as one of the coolest classrooms I've ever been in. Scott, when you finished your phase 1 training and you started phase 2 and walked through those doors for the first time, could you tell us a little bit about how you felt? I imagine it was probably quite overwhelming, maybe?
Yeah, I was definitely overwhelmed. Scared as well, I think, because there's this big, killing machine essentially in front of me. And yeah, there's just so much on the vehicle. Like, I guess sort of a common eye, this is like, oh, what are all these different, lids and circular things and bolts and stuff, and it's very confusing. And just like you're very curious as well. You can know, what does that do? What does this do? Why would the press this button, sort of thing. Yeah, it's definitely quite a bit scary at first. Obviously now, I'm fully trained on it, so it's not as terrifying to look at. But yeah, I was definitely confused, but also quite curious as well.
What's the first step in actually becoming a driver for a Challenger 2? Because I highly doubt they would just to let you hop straight in and get driving around the camp.
So you'll start off doing the theory work. So you'll learn all the maintenance, how everything works, ins and outs, that sort of stuff. Then you'll go to the simulation bit. So you'll actually hop into more or less a one-on-one remake of what actually is in the vehicle, minus the armour, turret, and the engine as well, of course. And you'll learn literally from, again, moving a few meters to go around a certain corner to reversing, doing like bridge crossings, that sort of stuff. So everything you do in real life, you do in the simulations first. Okay. Because health and safety. Yeah. And yes, you'll start off with that, and eventually you'll progress, then actually going on the vehicle itself and doing it in real life, which is what everyone looks forward to, more or less.
Should we have a look at it then?
Yes, let's go.
Let's do it.
So you'll put your feet first on the seat, and then kind of like wriggle yourself in. It's a bit uncomfortable, it's a bit confusing, but if you just give it a go,
give it a go, yeah.
Just don't hit anything, obviously, of course.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Yeah, so if you then try and get your head up into this little...
Just round the front?
As well, yeah. Again, it is very confusing at first. This is where it's good to be smaller. And
yeah, no, I bet.
And tall, obviously. Cool, yeah. So where your right foot is accelerator, and then brake power is left foot. When you're braking, you want to put 2 feet on because it's a big vehicle and you get more pressure out of it as well. Yeah, it's kind of risky if you only 1 feet. You've got your gear selector to your right as well. Essentially, it's not like a normal manual where you'll put it into gear. You kind of put it into like a selection. It'll go to 1 to 2 or 1 to 6 or whatnot.
Is that a pre-selector?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. And you've got your handbrake there. You've got to crank it. It's on a chain, so it's not just like, you have got to crank it a few times. So and then obviously your tillers as well, where you pull left and right. In reverse, obviously, it's the opposite way around.
Yeah.
Then you should be able to start driving.
Oh wow, that's so weird. It's got feedback as well. Wow, well, that's an experience. I've never been in a simulator quite like this. Incredibly detailed. I mean, I've got the entire like cluster to my left. It's just, it feels very surreal. I'm not sure I'd be able to fit one of these in my room at home, but absolutely brilliant experience. This has been really, really cool. And thank you so much, Scott. Like, this is absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
Well, finally, that is the end of our live stream for Tankfest 2026. Have you all had a great time this weekend?
Amazing.
Marvellous.
Will you come back again next year?
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
Fantastic. As I said earlier, tickets are available now at tankmuseum.org. But I've got a few thank yous I'd like to say. First of all, thank you to all of you for watching and for your continued support. It really is so important to us, and we really, really appreciate it. I want to thank all of our visitors, all of our staff and our volunteers who make this incredible event happen. There are months and months of work going on behind the scenes here to bring you such a special event. And also, I'd like to thank our partners and friends at World of Tanks for all of their support for the Tank Museum now and over the years, and all the team behind the cameras as well. So thank you all very much.
And of course, all it really needs for us is, again, to thank Nick, our co-host here. It's a fair few years now. And also everybody, of course, all of you at home, all of the community, all of the World of Tanks players and everybody else. So thank you once again for joining us.
And thank you, I want to reiterate again, thank you, Nick, and to the museum for great hospitality, the amazing ice cream in this heat. It's been a pleasure. Thank you to all of you viewers at home. I hope you enjoyed the show and claiming all your goodies. Congratulations to the winners. Check out the Tank Museum and worldoftanks.eu websites for the latest news and information, and we'll see you next time.
See you next year.